that at FAF when I was selling parts. A gentleman comes up to the counter, I'm interested in looking at some parts. Hi, my name is Jim Weed. He says, I'm John Giles. And, okay, John Giles. So we go back into the parts department. We look through bins and pull out a bunch of stuff that he's interested in. And we get talking. And I spent half an hour, 45 minutes with this gentleman. Wrote up the order, paid the bill. See you. Have a nice day. Talk to you soon. And he left. And I didn't think anything of it. Just another customer. And one of the sales guys came walking around the corner and was like, is Jay Giles still here? And I'm like, Jay Giles? And he's like, yeah, Jay Giles. Jay Giles? Jay Giles Band? And I'm like, you mean John Giles? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, no, he's already left. So that was a huge laugh over that here I'm talking to Jay Giles, and I had no idea. Just another guy, another car guy. And Jay Leno talks about this, that car guys are just car guys. Doesn't matter what your background is, what your history is. You're just a car guy. And so John calls on the phone a week or so later. And so I told him the story. We just laughed. We howled over that. So the next time he came into town, he calls me up. I get backstage passes to the Fox Theater, go down there, get to see his show. Way cool. So a couple years later, I'm in California selling parts there. I worked for a guy called Lyle Tanner and selling parts. And John walks through the door and he sees me and he's like, Jim, what are you doing here? And so we talked. And he's like, I'm down at the LA Coliseum. I'll get you backstage passes. And so we were able to get into LA Coliseum, watched the Eagles. Jay Giles opened for them. It was way cool to be backstage and in the special area. So that's one of the more famous people that I met that I can really talk about. Some of the basketball players, or I should say a basketball player that I worked with quite a bit, was Atlanta Hawks fella, and Dominic Wilkins, really super nice guy. I dealt with him in his Ferrari quite a bit. There are others, and I've got more stories than could be done here.
Wasn't it pretty funny that when you were dealing with Mr. Wilkins, it's like you always had to get approval from his mom?
I did, yeah. Yeah, so Dominic would bring his car in and he would have a list, the window doesn't go up and down, the horn doesn't work, whatever the list was, it runs funny. And so he would come up with the list. And the first time he came in, his mom picked him up. And so we talked, and then Dominic and I talked, and then he went off to the showroom to see what new stuff was out there. And his mom corralled me in my office, and she was like, okay, of this list that Dominic has, what has to be done? And I'm like, well, this and this and this, and we can wait on this. And, just kind of parsing out the list. And she's like, okay, you can do this, this, and this. If you need anything else, give me a call. And she gave me her phone number. And after that, and she said, whatever Dominic says he wants, you call me first. Yes, ma'am.
It's always good to have your parents watching out for you, no matter who you are.
Mom was taking care of Dominic.
Absolutely. Awesome. Yeah, I know you follow the Ferrari world all the way back from the very beginning, and watch the races. You do a lot of documenting of these races throughout history. Is there anything that really sticks in your head around that subject?
One of the things that we do here at Ferrari Market Letter, Gerald Rouse started collecting serial numbers and collecting history on the cars. And so that's what the Ferrari Market Letter has done for 50 years. We continue that today. And so as technology gets better, then we find new ways in order to archive information. So originally Gerald wrote things down on a 3x5 card and had file cabinets with 3x5 cards in it that he'd written down that he had spotted this car and these were the colors and this was the mileage, this was the owner, and kind of before anybody really kind of tracked that stuff. And that's all what we call train spotting. And train spotting came from an English term because people would sit next to the railroad tracks and they would write down the numbers on the locomotives and on the box cars or the passenger train cars. And so they would share these lists. You know, at 3:45, this train number went through and these were the cars that were on the list. And so it was, train spotting has become tracking the serial numbers. So one of the things that we've done recently, and I say in the last decade, is we take photographs of races that either are in our archives or, you know, elsewhere. If I find an old road and track and it's got a article or a picture of a race car, you know, I can scan that and record that. And so we track many different races. So I've got files with Nürburgring and Monza and Silverstone and all the Ferraris that were at those races. So we've developed these photo files, and the photo files, 10 years ago, we probably had 10,000 images in our computer. Right now, I'm pushing 650,000 images. So we track cars by races, by serial number. I've got a file folder with a serial number of a car. So we try to track that history visually with photographs, and we've also got a database with just word data in it where we can write notes about the car and track history that way.
So the value in that really would be that you would be able to link race history and provenance to each car, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.